Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books, and get ready for some witchy recommendations. So Becky from Bex Reads asked me to join in this booktube collab where myself and some other fellow booktubers are going to recommend you some witchy books, and I think that Becky knew that this is my jam, my wheelhouse. I love a good witchy story, so I have a few recommendations. I also have some that are my TBR that I own either physically on audiobook or ebook copies of that I really want to get to and just put on your radar as well. So we have quite a few to get through, but I wanted to shout out the other booktubers who are doing this. I will leave links to all of their videos down below, so hopefully by the end of watching all of our videos you have a nice hefty stack of witchy books to choose from this October. So obviously we have Becky from Bex Reads who organized this whole thing, and then we have Issa from Fun Fantasy Books, Jackie from First Lady Reads, Kalani from Kalani Simply Me, and Laura from A Book Circus. So I cannot wait to watch all of their videos and see what damage it does to my TBR. Now getting on to my recommendations, I don't think this will be a surprise to anybody that knows me, but I recommend an entire series, and it is the Practical Magic series. My favorite series of all time, my favorite witchy books of all time, my favorite Alice Hoffman books of all time. Just this series is a favorite overall. I'm going to put these behind me and show you the first book. So you can read these in chronological order because 2 of the 4 books are prequels and then there's a sequel. Or you can read them in publication order, which is what I would recommend doing because Practical Magic, the first book, this is the 25th anniversary edition. But it's older than that at this point. And I think it's the weakest of all the books. The next 3 books were published way more recently, and they feel more modern in that way, but there's something so nostalgic about this. If you have watched the movie, you know I watch the movie every year, sometimes twice a year. It's really what marks the start of the Halloween season for me, that and Hocus Pocus. And speaking of, you can't see it in this video, but I am wearing my Sanderson Sisters shirt, so I am ready for the second movie to come out, and hopefully I've watched it by the time this video goes up. But hopefully I've watched this as well because I just love that movie with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman so much. And if you know anything about that movie or the book, you know that this follows the Owens family, and there has been a curse in this family for many, many years. And throughout the generations, whenever a woman hears the sounds of a death beetle, they know that their true love is going to die. And we're following 2 sisters who have taken on, and they're witches obviously, and they have taken on very different paths in life, and one of them has a husband and children, and you might be able to predict what happens. And when they were kids, they created like a spell to create their perfect man, and it's all this kind of potions are really involved in here, and there is a cozy vibe to it and lots of family discussion. But there's also a mystery that happens in here and a bit of a cover-up and a love story. And we're also following the 2 aunts who are the stars of this book, the prequel. So the 2 aunts are older in this book, in Practical Magic, but in this one we follow them when they were teenagers and then I think up until their 30s. And this starts in the 1960s. And this might be my favorite in the series, but I'm not sure. I go back and forth on it, but this is the Rules of Magic. And we're following the aunts when they're teenagers. They're living with their own aunt, and they also have a brother. And it's them discovering their powers. And the family dynamics are really interesting in this one. I really do want to reread this entire series this year, but I don't think I will have time for it. But it's just interesting to see how all 3 of them go down different paths, different choices they make based on their magic. And I was really moved by it, and I loved it so much, and I know a lot of people like this one the best, and it is really good. So this is the first prequel. And then the second prequel I actually have an arc of, and like this is my most prized possession. I was thrilled when I got this. This is Magic Lessons, and this is like the original prequel. It's set in the 1600s during the Salem witch trials, and it explains where the curse on the Owens family came from in the very beginning. And we were following Maria Owens. She starts off in England, she ends up in Curacao, and then in Salem, Massachusetts, and then eventually in New York. So you follow her through all of this time and all of these locations, and obviously she ends up in Salem, so you can guess what happens there. and it was really interesting to get the backstory of the curse and why that happened. And I thought Maria was a very complex, interesting character, and the situation she finds herself in is devastating. So if you are more of a historical fiction reader, I think you would like this. And I do think you can read this one on its own and appreciate it for what it is if you're not interested in any of the others. And I think you could probably do that with Rules of Magic as well. The only one I think you obviously have to read the other books to appreciate, or at least Practical Magic to appreciate, is the sequel, and this is the Book of Magic. And this is about the two characters from Practical Magic and the aunts, older, trying to finally break the curse. And I cried in this. It is very emotional, very bittersweet, a perfect conclusion to my favorite series. So obviously that's my #1 recommendation. Go watch the movies as well. I wish they would adapt all of these. That would be pretty awesome. But yeah, so that's my #1 recommendation. Next, if you're into darker, more Gothic witch stories, which I only have one of those on my list, so if you have recommendations for those, let me know down below, or maybe some of my fellow booktubers will have some on their list. But this is The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook, who I adore. This was one of the best books that I read last year, and it's Gothic thriller is what I would call it. And it's set on an island in Scotland, and we're getting kind of two timelines. And here we are getting almost mixed media, because you're getting a grimoire from somebody who was alive at the time that witches were imprisoned underneath this lighthouse on this island. And it is being told, the lore is that these witches haunt the place seeking revenge. And then we're in the present, following a woman whose sister went missing when they were kids, and she gets a call that her sister is alive and has been found, and she goes to pick her up, very excited, and realizes that her sister hasn't aged at all. So then she starts to question, what is going on here? Is my sister a changeling? Has she been interacting with these witches? Is she a witch? And it's just so creepy and well done. C.J. Cook does atmosphere really well. I think anybody that likes books set on islands will appreciate this one. And if you're creeped out by changelings like I am, I think you're gonna like this. It's so creepy in that way. It doesn't hurt that the cover is gorgeous. So I liked the take on this, and the grimoire pieces were really interesting. So you get to see how witches were treated back in the day, and it's horrific, and you almost root for them. So I need to reread this as well because I loved it so much. But I have, C.J. Cook has a new book coming out, and I have an arc of that and can't wait. But yes, highly recommend. This one might seem obvious, but I couldn't pass it up, and that is Circe by Madeline Miller. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but I prefer Circe over A Song of Achilles, but maybe that is because I wasn't as familiar with Circe as a character, so I just felt like it was more fascinating for me because I was learning new things. And obviously this follows Circe. This is a Greek mythology, and Circe as a child isn't really powerful or alluring, but she soon discovers that she has the power of witchcraft and that she can turn her enemies into different creatures. And her father is threatened by this since there's something that happens. I mean, she knows something, but she is sent to an island for life, and she's isolated there, and it is all about her and her powers growing and the life she builds on this island for herself. And then all of the visitors that come to the island, lots of men, and then how gods are scared of her. And you see lots of classic mythical creatures throughout this. It's just a fascinating story. Circe's a very complex character. Her powers were very interesting to read about. And yeah, by far my favorite Madeline Miller so far, and myself and everybody recommends it, but I couldn't leave it off the list. These next two books are both 2022 releases, and I think if you read one and liked it, you're gonna like the other one. They have similar themes, just done in a different way. So the first one is The Witches of Moonshine Manor by Bianca Maris, and this follows a group of older witches who live in this Moonshine Manor, and they create whiskey. I believe it's whiskey for this town, and they have like a good relationship with the town, but you know that they have a past as well. One of them is in prison, and they have like interesting relationships. There's like sapphic love in here as well. And then somebody comes to their door and tells them that their manor is going to be turned down and built into like an amusement park for men. So it's satirical in a lot of ways and kind of ridiculous, but it's a good time. And I do find each of the witches are kind of like stereotypes, like they're like caricatures, but it were kind of fun to read about. So we get to learn about their history, their relationships with one another. It's really like a found family in that way. And then them trying to save their manor. And there is a teenage girl that comes into the picture, and she's like a popular TikTok star. So it's just kind of fun, but also some more serious topics. And I think you can get through this rather quickly. So that is a good one. And then the one that I would recommend that's similar but darker, I would say, is A Change by Kirsten Miller. And this is, again, following older women. And I don't know if they ever actually say that they're witches, but they come into their powers once they go through menopause. And as they're discovering this, they discover that a young woman has been murdered. They found her body in the lake, and nobody seems to care about her. They just write her off as like another drug addict. But these women know that more's happening because of their powers. One can see ghosts. And then they end up in something very sinister where they're looking at the elite in high society and cover-ups and what the wealthy can get away with. And so yeah, it's really like a fantasy thriller mystery, and the relationship between these women is really interesting. I loved Kirsten Miller's description, so I really do think that these two are a really good pairing. Great 2022 releases as well. Now I have two books that I listened to on audiobook, and they are both like witchy romances, and they are just a good time. The first one is one that really surprised me. It is Not the Witch You Wed, and this is the first in a series. We are getting a sequel next year, which I'm excited about because I think the author did a really good job of creating this world and the politics at play here, which is not what I was expecting at all. So this is like a fake dating romance between a magicless witch and like an alpha werewolf, and for a lot of political reasons and just family dramas and things, they both think that pretending to date will be beneficial for them and the politics and all that stuff. And they are also exes. They were together when they were teenagers, and he left her, broke her heart. She's been devastated about it ever since, hold a grudge against him ever since. But of course, when they're dating again, the feelings come back, and it's kind of a sweet, fun story, but I was really compelled by the world. So again, fun one. These are just like 3.5 star reads that are quick to get through, and if you need something to break up some heavier stuff you're gonna read in October, I think that's a good one. And then look forward to the sequel next year. And then the other one I have is The Kiss Curse, which is a sequel to The X-Acts, but I have not read The X-Acts. And at first I was a little confused when I was listening to this one. I did get the audiobook from Libro.fm, but I quickly got oriented into the world, and it's a romance, so it was fun. And you know, they're companion novels, so I don't think you have to read The X-Acts to appreciate this one. You do get cameos from the couple from the first book, but they go on a honeymoon for most of it. So we're following the brother of the guy from the first book and the cousin of the girl, and they actually know each other. They went to the same university, but they never got along. So it's very much like a grumpy sunshine, enemies to lovers kind of thing. And Hugh moves back to this town, opens up a store, and now they have competing like witchcraft stores, and they start to pull pranks on each other and stuff. But then they quickly have some steamy scenes, like it's super steamy. They might have a common enemy that they have to come together to defeat. And there are some fun little twists I didn't see coming. It's just a good time, very steamy, I would say. I think it's like lust at first sight more than anything. I do wish that we had a bit of a deeper emotional connection than what we got, but again, it's a fun one, a good listen, a nice one to break it up. And I don't think I will go back and read the first one at this point, but if there are more in this series, I will continue on with it because it was fun. And then I just have to recommend the book that I'm listening to right now. It's A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and this is everywhere on BookTube for a good reason. I am having the best time with this. For some reason, this year seems to be the year of cozy books for fall. I'm loving it. I am here for it. And this is like the epitome of that. And we're following a main character who is a witch, but she lives in a world where magic is banned. Witches cannot be together in the same room or close to each other at all because they just become too powerful, and then they will be detected by humans. and our main character starts posting like YouTube videos pretending to be a witch, but she's actually a witch. She's discovered by this secret society of witches and pulled into them, and the found family aspect is so good. I'm not far enough in it yet to really tell you anything more than that, but it's so charming. Loving the audiobook. So I think the hype for this one is very, very real. Now let's move on to the ones on my TBR. I just couldn't stop myself. I just wanted to talk about all the witchy books that I know of or own. So the first one is the Fairy Loot edition. This is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. Look at this, so pretty. And this is, I'm gonna read you the back because I thought the back really sold this one to me. It says, through Her Majesty's Royal Coven, you can become part of an illustrious witching legacy stretching back to her founding sister, Anne Boleyn. So fun. We serve Gaia through service to the planet, the country, Her Majesty, the Queen, and the people. We work as a team to support the UK government in the handling of supernormal events and incidents, to uphold the tradition of witchcraft in the United Kingdom, and to safeguard our continued legacy. Her Majesty's Royal Coven is a place for women and girls to reach their full potential, develop their gifts, and enjoy the protection and sisterhood that only an official coven can provide. So I think that's going to be a really good time. I've been seeing some good reviews, so that's happening this fall for me. Then we have one that I meant to read last year, and this gets a lot of hype. This is The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. And I also have her newest one on audiobook, and that is The Wild is a Witch. So I want to get to this one first. This follows it's in a world where witches control the weather, and every witch is assigned a season, but our main character is able to have powers in all of the seasons, and everybody else's powers are depleting and not as strong as they used to be except for her, so she is really in control of everything now. And we follow her through the seasons and how her magic differs, and I think there's commentary on climate change. And here I've just heard incredible things, and I do have the edition that has the stunning hardcover underneath, so want to read this. This is YA, but I've heard it's fantastic, and whenever I watch one of these witchy recommendation videos, this seems to be on there, so that is a good sign for me. Then I have an ARC. This doesn't come out till December 27th, which I think is an odd choice. Anyways, this is The Lost Witch by Paige Crutcher, and this is from Macmillan, so thank you to them. And it's set in two timelines, 1922 and 2022, and we're following a witch named Bridget, who back in 1922, she was trying to save her daughter, and something happened. She ends up disappearing, and she turns up in 2022 with no memories of what happened, but realizes that Evermore, I think that's what this place is called, yeah, Evermore is under siege. She's unleashed all of these supernatural creatures on the town, and her memories start coming back. I think she's trying to rectify what she has done 100 years later. So I think that could be fun. I will read this in October and get back to you on what I think about it and whether or not you should pre-order it. This is one that was on my 12 challenge from the beginning of the year, and my blog followers know how much I love witchy stories, so I got a few witchy recommendations for that, and I never heard of this one before. It's A Witch in Time by Constance Sayers, and this sounds so good. I think a lot of you could love this, but I don't hear about it very often. It says some love affairs last lifetimes. So we're following a woman, and I think it starts off historical, 1895, and she is 16 years old, and her name's Juliet, ironic. And she is like a muse who's having an affair with a married artist, and her mother is a witch and tries to put a curse on the artist, but it goes wrong, and she's cursed them both so that they will always have this torrid affair throughout all of their lifetimes, and that the daughter Juliet will always have a tragic ending. She will always die young, but they're just destined to be together through all of the lifetimes. And then the person that is in charge of keeping this curse going is in love with Juliet through all of her iterations. Every lifetime that she lives in, he's in love with her. So I think that sounds so fun. I don't know why this doesn't get more hype. We'll see once I read it, but that premise just sounds so interesting to me. So it's a bigger book. Let's see how many pages. 500, but I really, really want to get to that. That sounds so good. And now I have a few that I have e-arcs of or audiobooks for, so I just want to get through them quickly just to put them on your radar. So the first one is In the Company of Witches, and there is a new book club happening on BookTube. It's called the Cozy Hollow Book Club. I will leave all the links you need for that down below. There's some great booktubers putting that together, and it's a cozy mystery book club. And if you're anything like me, you've fallen in love with cozy mysteries over the last couple of years. So I'm so excited about this, and that is something to note. that a lot of cozies do have witches. So if you're looking for something like that, check out Cozy Mysteries. Just because they like mass market paperbacks, they're so good. And if you just need something fun and light that you know will put a smile on your face, I always recommend a cozy. But In the Company of Witches is following a woman who is living with her aunt, and they run like a B&B. I think the series is about this B&B. And a man dies at this B&B and her aunt is being arrested for it. So she has to prove that her aunt is innocent and find the killer, and they're also witches. So I don't know how the witchy aspect comes into play. There's a cat on the cover. I just love a good cozy. They're very formulaic, but a good time. Next I have Witchful Thinking, and this looks really fun. It is following a young witch who accidentally curses herself so that she can never say no to anything. So it's like that movie, Yes Man. Is that what it's called? It's been a long time since I've seen that. With witches, and she ends up having to say yes to helping her neighbor who she has a crush on get rid of a curse that is on his house. And I think it's probably just going to be a lot of good shenanigans. That is a 2022 release. I can't wait to read. Bad Witch Burning. I actually have this on an audiobook from Libro FM. This sounds epic. I think everybody needs to look this one up because it sounds so good. It is following a young witch who can talk to the dead, and she is making money this way. She's like a medium, and then she is warned that she needs to stop doing this because something bad is going to happen, but she just brushes it off. She wants money, she doesn't care. And she actually raises somebody from the dead, and instead of stopping and that scaring her, she realizes that's more lucrative. She can make more money doing that. So she continues to do it, makes more money, but then I think it all falls apart on her. So yeah, that sounds epic. I can't wait to read that one. I just wanted to put this one on your radar. It's not out yet, but I think I'll be talking about this a lot because I'm just so excited. It's a 2023 release, and it's called The Witch and the Vampire. So it's a sapphic love story between a witch and a vampire, and they're making their way through a cursed forest. I don't know, the cover is everything. I just think this is gonna be fantastic, and I cannot wait to read it. And then of course I had to put The Year of the Witching on this list, even though I know next to nothing about it. Whenever I see these videos, that book's always on there, and everybody seems to love it, and that's more the Gothic vibes that I'm probably looking for, so I really should look more into that one. Then the last one I have is How to Succeed at Witchcraft. It's a YA book following a young girl who wants to go to get some scholarships. I believe she is in high school, like at a boarding school, and so she is in like a play because she thinks it looks good on her scholarship applications, but the lead is somebody she can't stand, a girl she hates but secretly probably loves, and they have like a little love story. But then the theater director is starting to groom them and is giving them unwanted attention, and they work together to expose him. So I do think it gets darker. Don't let this cute cover fool you. I think that there are a lot of triggers in here, but I will read that one and report back to you on what I think. So those are all the witch books that I recommend that are on my TBR. I can't wait to see your recommendations. Watch everybody else's videos. Thanks again for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.